This video is going to explore how to use Venn diagrams to organize information and make it sort of easier to make conclusions based off when we just have sort of two qualities that we're looking at and sort of the overlap between them. And so we're going to look at two different situations. We're going to build a Venn diagram and then use the Venn diagram to answer questions. So in this first situation, we have 150 students were interviewed about what classes they signed up for. 85 signed up for math, 70 signed up for English, and 50 signed up for math. And the tricky thing here is people like to say, okay, well, I'm going to put, math in this first circle, and I'm going to put English in this second circle, and 85 signed up for math, 70 signed up for English, and 50 signed up for both. Ta-da! I'm done. Except if I went through and I added 85 plus 70 plus 50, I would actually get 205 people. And if you notice, the very first line of this problem says 150 freshman students. So this isn't quite as simple as just taking the numbers we're given. We have to do a little bit of reasoning to figure out what the actual values should be. Now, I tend to always like to, if I can, start at what I like to call the overlap, the part that involves both people who signed up for English and math. And we are given that information. We're told right here that 50 of our people signed up for both English and math. So we're going to put a 50 in there. But then we need to figure out sort of what goes on the outside of that circle. And so let's talk about those 85 students who signed up for math. When we say 85 students signed up for math, we're looking at within this entire math circle, we should have 85 students, which means there's some number of students who just signed up for math plus the 50, and that should equal 85. So what you could think about is, something plus 50 equals 85. Well, what do I add to 50 to get 85? That would be 35. Or 85 minus 50 gets me back to that 35. Okay, so now I figured out how many people have just math only. I'm going to do a similar setup sort of with that English circle. So everywhere in that English circle, that should total 70. So something plus 50 should equal 70. Well, that something should be 20. All right, so I got my English only students. Now I'm going to go back to that sort of total we began with, because now if I look at the three parts of my circle, I have 35 plus 50 plus 20, which comes out to 105. But now I'm short students, because again, I still need 150 total students. So I'm going to say, okay, well, there's 150 total students. So far, I've only accounted for 105 of them. So if I subtract those, I would find out that there are 45 students who they didn't sign up for English or math. So they're just going to get sort of outside, floating there on their own. Now, once I have this diagram, it's pretty simple to go through and just make some conclusions about the numbers that go within each circle. So here, how many students signed up for only a math class? So if I go back up to my Venn diagram, that would be the number in the math circle that's not part of the overlap. So in this case, that would be the 35 students. Same idea with the only signed up for an English class. I'm looking in the outside circle. That would be 20. And then how many signed up for math or English but not both? Well, that's putting the two together. So that's saying if I take that 35 and I add 20 to it, I would end up with 55 students. And then how many signed up for neither? Those were that 45 that we found on that outside of the circle. And there we go. We have created our two circle Venn diagram and then used it to answer some questions about how many students. And we'll be taking this in the next module a step further and actually finding what's the likelihood using some probabilities. But for now, we're focused on just can we count how many? All right, let's look at the next problem. This is structured a little differently. because instead of being given values, we're actually given percents. So just a quick refresher before we dive too far in this circle, or this problem. When we talk about percents, remember that percents are basically the value out of 100. Percents are always sort of totaled out of 100. So if I want to sort of figure out, if I have 50% of something, it would be 50 out of 100 times my total, and that would help me figure out the part. So we're going to be sort of coming back to that way of thinking as we work through this problem. All right, now let's dive and break this apart. So we have a movie critic who reviewed 36 films, and then she gave favorable reviews to 72.2%, and 66.7% of the films were feature films, and 50% were both feature films, and she liked them. So we want to sort of create a Venn diagram of this. So one of our things is going to be favorable reviews, and I'm going to abbreviate that with FR. And the next one is feature films, so I'm going to call that FF. And then these are, film reviews is sort of our overall topic. Now, just like before, I'm going to start in that both section. So 50% of the films in this sort of that the critic reviewed were given positive reviews. So remember that figuring out how many that is. Well, this 36 up here, that's going to be our total. And we want 50% out of that total 36, which would be 18. And so this would be in my both part of my Venn diagram, right there in the middle. All right, the next part, doesn't matter which side we go. So let's start with that 72.2. So favorable reviews was 72.2. So we're going to do 72.2, and this might make a few of you nervous, but if I just put that over 100, it's still just a pretty old fraction. So that's my fraction of 36. And if I type this in my calculator, and remember fractions can be entered in our calculator as a division problem. So I'd have 72.2 divided by 100 times 36, and that would come out around 26. Now, just like on the previous problem, that 26 is everything that goes in that favorable review circle. Ooh, this whole one right here. So something plus 18 should equal 26. Well, if I subtract 18 from 26, I would end up with 8 films that had favorable reviews. Okay, and then featured films is our other circle over here, and we have 66.7%. So 66.7 out of 100, 36, and that ended up being around 24 films. And just like before, some unknown plus 24 equaled, not 24, plus 18 should come out for that total 24 in the circle, and that would end up being 6. All right, so we have all of our circles filled in, but we still need to know, are there any films that didn't fit either of these sort of characteristics? And so that's where we know we have a total of 36, but here we have 8 plus 18 plus 6, which actually only equals 32. So 36 minus 32 makes 4 films that don't fit either. They got bad reviews, and they aren't featured films, so they sort of go on the outside there. And so this was sort of how we used the percentages. So we take the percents to figure out the counts. And granted, I might have rounded on some of my numbers because I'm not going to have a fraction of a film. So we sort of rounded to the nearest whole number in order to fill in our Venn diagrams. And these are both examples of sort of 2-set Venn diagrams. Stay tuned for the next video in which you learn about 3-set Venn diagrams.